Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Carl from Planet 40k, and today we're going to be doing our first unit review for the new Necron Codex. So the first unit we're going to be covering is the Technomancer. This is a new HQ character option within the Codex. So he comes in at 4 power level, or if you're playing points, his base cost is 75 points. And that's before any upgrades, which we'll go over later in the video. So his base stats are as follows: movement 5 inch, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, toughness 4, wounds 4, attacks 1, leadership 10 and a 4+ save. So in terms of his upgrade options, only one of the 2 following options can be selected. So you've either got the Cryptek cloak, which grants the bearer of the cloak a 10-inch movement instead of his 5-inch. It also gives him the fly keyword, which he's actually the only one out of the 4 new Cryptek models that doesn't have the fly keyword. Also, the bearer of this cloak can repair one friendly dynasty unit D3 wounds when within 3 inches of the Technomancer. This cloak costs 5 points. The second option is a Cryptek control node. This is an aura ability where any Cryptek units within 6 inches will gain a +1 to hit, so that includes both shooting and melee. This upgrade costs 15 points. So I feel a bit in the middle of these because the cloak option does all the repairing of any unit. It's not just Cryptek units. So this ability allows you to keep up with those Cryptek destroyers and the Cryptek lord, for example, and then repair D3 wounds each turn. As for the node, this is also decent. It'll help spiders, giving them a +1 to hit, or those doomstalkers too with their big gun. So both options are pretty viable. So moving on to his built-in abilities, it has the following. So it has living metal, command protocols, dynasty advisors and rites of reanimation. So let's talk about those. Living metal is the same as it previously was, which you just regain 1 lost wound at the start of the turn. Nice and simple there. Command protocols is new to the book. So this is if your army has a noble as its warlord, you gain access to command protocols. So before the game you have 6 command protocols and you secretly select one of them for each battle round. Each battle round you then reveal your command protocol to your opponent, and then within the protocol there are 2 choices called directives. Then you go on to select one of those directives for the use of that battle round. Units then need to be within 6 inches of any Necron character to be able to benefit from this directive. So pretty much all the units in the Codex have the ability for command protocols except for Catan shards. So this is going to be a fairly common rule once you start using or going up against Necrons. The next ability, Dynastic Advisors. So this is simply where if your army is battle forged, then for each Cryptek in your detachment, that includes a noble in your detachment, a second Cryptek can be included in that detachment and it won't take up a battlefield role spot. So without this you'll be struggling to fit all your nobles and Crypteks into the detachment. So this allows you to be able to play your combat patrol detachments or your battalion detachments without worrying about overfilling your HQ spots. The last ability, called Rites of Reanimation. So this is also a new ability where in the command phase you select one friendly core unit within 6 inches of this model and one destroyed model reanimates. If the unit is a warrior unit, then you can reanimate D3 warriors instead of just the 1. You can only select 1 unit per phase with this type of ability. So this is nice to keep your warriors up. Lich Guard are also core units if you want to bring them back too. What you need to remember though, Crypteks used to be a +1 to reanimation. This isn't the case anymore. In fact, there's very few ways to do that now, other than the Cryptek Reanimator and the Orb of Eternity being a few examples. Okay, going on to the weapons, the Technomancer carries a Staff of Light, which is both shooting and melee. The shooting side is an 18-inch assault 3, strength 5, -2 AP and single damage. It's just okay, nothing special here, and with a ballistic skill of 3+, on average you'll get 2 out of 3 hits with your shots. Wound and toughness 4 models on a 3, with the arm penetration value at -2 isn't bad, so you might be able to peel off a wound a turn. The melee side of the weapon is strength user, so that's strength 4, then also a -2 AP and single damage. So again, just average here. And remember, this guy's only got 1 attack, so don't expect anything from the Technomancer in combat with his stock weapons. So that's his basic stats and abilities. Now we can go over what sort of things you can put on him. So we actually did a Cryptek Arcana video in the last Necron video. I'll put a link in the corner for you to if you want to go check that out. So there's a few here that are potentially good for the Technomancer to use. So we'll discuss those. So first is what's called the Failsafe Overcharger, which is where in the command phase, select a Cryptek unit within 9 inches of the Technomancer, and until the start of the next command phase, add 1 to the attack characteristics, and if it's a monster or vehicle, you add D3 attacks. So this is great for your Wraith units, if you're keeping up with them with the Cryptek Cloak, or perfect for your Cryptek Spiders, paired with the Cryptek Node upgrade, giving the Spiders the extra D3 attacks and +1 to their hits. There's obvious synergy here with this Arcana. It does cost you an extra 30 points for this upgrade, or 2 power level if you're playing power. So the Technomancer is now starting to be anything between sort of 110 and 120 points at the moment. The other only Technomancer Arcana is Phylacterine Hive, which is where once per battle you can, instead of using your Rites of Reanimation ability on a core unit, you can instead use it on a Cryptek unit or a Destroyer Cult unit or a Triarch Praetorian unit. This Arcana costs 20 points or 1 power. So again, it's a nice little bit of synergy with your Wraiths and your Spiders, being able to reanimate a whole Spider back to 6 wounds. That's a 60+ point model with toughness 6, with its own abilities such as Living Metal, so that's a really good little combo there. I won't go through all the Arcana options, like I said, there's a separate video for that, but I just thought I'd mention a few for you from the list. In fact, there's one more I do want to mention, the Hypermaterial Ablator. So it will get your core units and your Cryptek units into light cover. So again, I keep referring to Spiders, but your Spiders will then be on a 2+ save. The same thing applies to your Wraiths, giving them a 2+ save. Your Warriors will go to a 3+ save. And even your Doomstalker will go up to a 2+ save. So that one's a really strong one as well. So moving on to the Relics, there's only one real option that's a non-dynasty specific option. So he carries a Staff of Light, and you can upgrade this to a Voltaic Staff, which turns your Assault 3, Strength 5, -2, 1 damage weapon into an Assault 4, Strength 6, -2 weapon with 2 damage, and Exploding 6s giving 2 more hits for every 6 you achieve. The melee version I'm not really going to look into. 1 attack, it's not really worth the mention. There are a few dynasty specific options too, such as Solar Staff among others. I'll go over these when we do our dynasty videos, so keep your eye out for those. Next I thought I'd quickly mention the Kryptothralls. We covered this unit in the Indominus box set, but they are worth a small mention here. So if you weren't aware of this unit and what they do, they're effectively bodyguards for your Crypteks. So for 40 points you get 2 of these in a unit, and if they're within 3 inches of your Cryptek, then the Cryptek model cannot be targeted by any ranged weapons, and that includes your snipers that ignore the Lookout Sir rule. The unit is actually very good for only 40 points, and they do get a stat boost while they're within range of a Cryptek, and they also don't take up a slot in your detachment, so as long as you've got a Cryptek unit with it, which you obviously will if you're taking these guys, then they're not going to take up any slots. If you were to select your Technomancer as your Warlord, if you were able to, then I'd highly suggest using the Thrall of the Silent King trait, which grants an additional 3 inch to all your aura abilities. And as you've seen already, he does have quite a few aura abilities if you keep putting all these upgrades on. So finally I'll go over a few noteworthy mentions from the Stratagems section that work well with your Technomancer model. So firstly, from the Epic Deed Stratagems list, you have Resurrection Protocols, which you can use on your infantry Cryptek model. So when the model is destroyed on a 4+, he can stand back up on D3 wounds remaining, and this only costs 1 command point and cannot be blocked by your opponent. So depending on how vital the model is in the current game, you can pop this stratagem when needed, and it works in any phases as well. And what's good about it is it happens at the end of the phase. So if he's died, say, in combat, he can get up at the end of the phase knowing that nobody else is going to attack him. Another stratagem here called Deathless Arise, which is also an Epic Deed stratagem. Used in the command phase, you select a Technomancer model and it can use its Rites of Reanimation an additional time in the phase. So now unfortunately you can't keep using it on a Cryptek Spider, as that ability is only a once per game ability. But this is decent for getting your warriors back up. Firstly, you're doing it twice, affecting 2 different units, and secondly, it's obviously 2 lots of D3 models that are standing up, potentially getting 6 warriors getting up. And this stratagem only costs you 1 command point too. So overall this model is more of a buffing character. Its actual damage output is quite minimal, but the buffs it can do is pretty good. It's pretty much your Necron Techmarine for the entire army, as it heals warriors, spiders, wraiths, vehicles. He's sort of a Warhammer 40k's version of the Bob the Builder. You name it, he can fix it. I love that Games Workshop has taken the Codex back to the older past editions where the Crypteks actually have a unique individual role for the army. I really do like that. Its points cost is okay, but once you start adding the upgrades, it starts to add up. You're starting out at 75 base, but with the potential of going up to say 120. There is so much versatility with him, especially with the new Arcana. And I mentioned before, I played Tyranids, and this Technomancer fully kitted out costs approximately the same as what a Broodlord would cost. But the difference is, you know exactly what a Broodlord is going to do in the game. He's going to advance, charge, probably bring a group of Gene Stealers alongside him. Whereas a Technomancer, you can play him in so many different ways, so you have to respect him when you're up against him, sort of until you've worked out what your opponent's going to do with him, and by then it could even be too late. So just before I get onto the star rating, I wanted to urge you all to hit that subscribe button below. It'll only take a second of your time. We're going to be hammering out the unit reviews within the Codex very frequently from now onwards. We're still a fairly new channel and we could use the support as it goes a long way on the whole YouTube algorithm thing, and it's helping us grow a lot. So going back onto the conclusion of this model, I really do like the model. I love the versatility, I love the buffs, I love the abilities. Yes, he's pretty weak in terms of damage output, he's weak in terms of strength and toughness. There's no invuln save either. So after all said and done, I think I'm torn between a 3.5 and a 4 out of 5. As it's quite hard to compare this type of unit to say a Cryptek Lord that has a good amount of damage output, but the fact that he can do so much for other units, I'm still going to go with a 4 out of 5. And this rating will be compared to the other Necron units within the Codex and not the entirety of the 40k game, so just please bear that in mind. Let me know in the comments what you would have gave the Technomancer and why. What type of combos can you come up with? I know a lot of our subscribers are always good with these kind of ideas of giving combos in the comments, so I'd love to hear them. So as time goes on, we hopefully will have a more established Patreon service going, and our future rating reviews will be done from our Patreon community polls. So if you want to get involved and have your say on what the units ratings will be before they're actually released, go check that out. Links in the description for our Patreon, where we've got exclusive patron benefits and it massively builds the channel. We'll be covering all the units in the book, so please subscribe, hit that notification bell. Don't forget to like the video on your way out, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.